All right, so good evening, good evening, good evening, everyone. We are live, the Songbird and Me organization. It's your girl, Stephanie Ray Songbird. I am so happy to be here today as we are preparing to talk about healthy relationships and teen dating violence awareness. Now, let me make sure, because y'all know how I am. I always let y'all know I'm a little technical challenged. So we want to make sure that we are live on the stream. So y'all give me just 2 seconds while we make sure that we are live and can be heard. And we are, so that's a beautiful thing. Hopefully you all that are in the room have gotten an opportunity to register. Thank you so much for doing so, as we need to have this conversation. This conversation is well overdue. I also will allow, at this point, I'll share the Facebook link. So if you have other people that maybe are not on the call here today, you want to share with, I'll post that in the chat for you so you can share that with your family and your friends. And like I said, we're calling educators, we're calling parents, we're calling youth, teens, and young adults to have this conversation that's long overdue. Let me just give you a brief introduction about myself. Again, my name is Stephanie Ray Songbird. I am with the Songbird and Me organization. We are a nonprofit organization. We've been around as of March for 10 years. We've been here for 10 years, working in the community, working with families and individuals who are at risk or experiencing trauma. We are a voice for those that have lost their voice. And so we believe in having programs, supporting individuals who are impacted by trauma to restore them to a place of healthiness and healing and normal functioning. And we do that through panel discussions and different cause-related events. If you want to check us out and get involved, if there's any way that we can partner with you, your family, your church, or your community, that's why we're here. We want to bring awareness to some of those things and some of those issues that maybe we're not discussing, or we may need more feet on the ground. So please check out the songbirandme.com, and definitely you can send us an email or give us a call. We will be more than happy to partner with you and see what that looks like as we continue to build our community into a healthy place. But without further ado, I want to introduce my panelists today that are coming on so we can tackle this discussion. So my first guest, and I don't know how you see the screen, but I'm going to go in the order that I can see them on the screen. I want to welcome to the stage my Destiny Edwards. And of course, she's representing for the young adults today. My Destiny, I've known her since she was a young teen, and she has grown up to be such a wonderful, amazing young lady that advocates for so many things. She's currently a fourth grade teacher. She teaches dual language, which is reading and science. She also helps, or she works with the youth at her church. She's a youth matron at her church, and she teaches all ages, but high schoolers are kind of her specialty. And if you know anything about high schoolers, y'all grown at that point when you get to high school. So sometimes it's a little bit difficult to work with little grown people. But kudos to my Destiny for doing so. Also, congratulations to her. Like I said, I have watched her blossom into a wonderful young lady. She's also a young wife. She's been married to Mr. Jaden Edwards. They've been married. I try to give them longer because they are old souls, right? But they've been married about a year. Much wisdom and much knowledge. And I have my Destiny here, one, because she has walked in those footsteps as a young teen, right? And now as a young adult, of course. And I know she has much knowledge to bring to the table as she continues to work with our youth and our young adults. So if y'all are here, y'all can give her a snap, or, raise your hand up, or if you're in the Zoom room, do the emoji and just welcome my Destiny to the stage. Now the next person, I call him a nephew in his own right. Love him like he's my own kid. Minister Kevin Luckey. So glad that he is able to come to the panel today to bring his wisdom and his input. So Kevin is a youth minister at the Chosen Church of Houston, where of course he works with all ages. He's one of the youth leaders. I have watched him work with the young people. He teaches them on Saturday, giving them much knowledge, and they have much respect for him. He also works with kids in other arenas, especially my my particular favorite group, that 6th through the 8th grade group, that middle school group. You know, one day they're living and the next day they're ready to die. So you never know what you're going to get from that 6th to 8th grade group, right? And so he works with them. He coaches basketball. He coaches football. He also coaches baseball. So he's kind of what we call a teacher of all trades in his own right. So we welcome Kevin to the stage. And I cannot go without saying he is also happily married to his beautiful wife, Maddie. And they have 2 beautiful girls and 1 baby that's on the way. So congratulations on the blessing that's coming and the blessings that you have. And thank you so much for joining the panel on today. And so as they say, let's get ready to rumble. Let's go, let's go, let's go. If you're here again, those that are in the Zoom room, please keep your phones muted. And then once we start asking questions, the chat is available for you to ask questions in the chat. And then we'll, of course, let our speakers answer those questions as we flow through this dialogue. And then also we can open it up for any questions that you all may have. So let's get ready to have this discussion. Now, one thing about myself, I am a person that is myself in all arenas. So yes, I have a nonprofit organization on my own, but I also work for a domestic violence agency where I do prevention and education and awareness. And my specialty is the youth and the young adults. And so I go into the middle schools, the high school, as well as the college campus. And we're talking about healthy relationships, what that is, what they think about it. It's so many things that's influencing our youth, and we can see it. You know, us that work with youth, we can see the relationships they have with their friends, their siblings, with their parents, so on and so forth. So when I ask this first question, it's going to be for every relationship that we have, right? So before we can talk about what's healthy or unhealthy, I feel like we need to define some things. So if I ask you, what is a relationship? How would you define that? And I'm going to go ahead and do ladies first. My Destiny, asking you, what is a relationship? What definition would you give for that?
Well, first off, thank you for having me. To me, a relationship is something that all of the parties are willingly engaged in. I don't think that a relationship is just based off of proximity. So a relationship can be platonic, it could be familial, it could be romantic, but all parties need to be willingly contributing to um, the relationship and meeting the needs of all parties. Yeah.
Okay. I like it. Yeah, that's good. And there's no right or wrong answer there. That's a good answer. And I hope y'all taking notes. I ain't giving out any prizes or anything, but I hope y'all taking notes. All right. So the same question I'm gonna ask to Kevin. If you had to define a relationship, what is a relationship? How would you define that?
Like my Destiny said, thank you for having me on. What I would consider a relationship is a connection. It's a connection between one, two, it could be a group of people, but it's just connection, something that you agree with that person, that they also agree with you. So that's what I would consider a relationship, is just a connection. And again, it doesn't have to necessarily be a romantic relationship, but a friendship, just something that you are connecting with another person.
I agree. Very good. The connection word, I really love that y'all both said that, because relationships, we have them, and I don't think we think about that often. When I ask this question, of course, dealing with young people, the first thing they think is my girlfriend, my boyfriend, and my boo. And I'm like, first of all, don't you have a mom or a dad or a brother or a sister? Let's talk about that first. But also, one of the things I tell them, one of the most important relationships you'll ever have is with yourself, right? So before you can connect to anybody else, hopefully you're connected with yourself. Because I always say you're going to tell people how to treat you or not treat you. And so if I had to give you a book definition of relationships, or even from the perspective as we continue to go further, we want to also talk on the interpersonal relationships or more intimate relationships. So yes, a relationship is connection. That's basically what it is. Sometimes it's a mutual connection, sometimes not, but we form relationships daily, from our classmates to our teachers, right? To people at church. This call right here today, we're forming a relationship that's on the most smallest definition, but we do know as we grow in relationships, they take on different meanings and different categories. And so when we're talking about intimacy or interpersonal relationship, it says an intimate relationship is an interpersonal relationship that involves emotional or physical closeness between people. And of course, this is where we go into that may include sexual intimacy and feelings of romance or love, things like that. Intimate relationships are interdependent, and the members of the relationship mutually influence each other. So that goes back along with connection. And I want to say that, as we're defining that, as we go further in the discussion today, relationships, they should be mutual. They should be something mutual for me and mutual for the other people involved. So thank y'all for asking that question. Now think about this, because we said relationships, again, this is a relationship that we're having right now. But when you think about how you relate to people, the relationships that you've been in, whether with your spouse or previous people that you've been involved with, friends and otherwise, who taught you about relationships? Think about that for a second. I want to throw that out there because it's important, how we understand relationships, and the way we understand it will determine if our relationships are healthy or unhealthy. So for a second, we've defined connection and mutuality is part of relationship. That should be definitely those exclusive factors. But when you think about that, since you have defined that, both of you did define that, who taught you about relationship? And when you're ready, my Destiny, you can answer that question.
All right, I was gonna pass it off to Kevin, but thank you. All right, so I think I've learned about relationships from a lot of different places and people. Of course, starting off, it starts with family, just coming into the world. And so positive and negative experiences. But as I've gotten older, I did become more of an observer. So I really watched a lot of things with family, and then of course, growing older, I spent a lot of time at school. So looking at like friendships, or just I guess on the outside looking in, and relationships that I was actually engaged in. And then also I'm a reader, so I learned about relationships through reading. So I think a lot of my learning has come through observing, and then even having conversations with my friends, or my mom is a very big person. And then some other family members as well, and observing. I'm a very big observer, so that's a big word for me.
Okay, so observation. Very good. Okay. Kevin, so that you've defined relationships now, who taught you about relationships?
Um, so just to piggyback, I would say family, more so family, and to be more specific, I would say like uncles.
Okay.
My my uncles were teaching me about relationships. Now, with that being said, I don't think what they were teaching was necessarily productive or
Okay.
necessarily positive for me. But I guess they were just teaching what they knew, and so I learned that from uncles and things like that. And I kind of soon as I grew up, I understood that not every, like we define a relationship as a connection, not every connection you have with somebody is a good connection. And so I learned that through trial and error, just going through life and bumping my head plenty of times and realizing something has to change, something has to be different. And it can't be like this, even though this is what I was taught or this is what I've learned. Um, so really my uncles and family have taught me what relationships are.
Okay. So that was where I was going, and you kind of answered that. You said, observation, my uncles mostly family, and what you said, I was going to ask, well, what did you learn? You said, They taught me some stuff. I don't know if it was all right, but they taught me what they knew at that time. And so that's where I was gonna go. And you kind of alluded to that. You know, they taught me or they gave me what they knew, right? And a lot of us, we can honestly say our first experience in relationships are with the families, those that raise us, our parents, our caregivers, grandparents, our loved ones, right? And so we're not gonna talk about the ancestors because we love them, right? But I'm sure we all can definitely attest, you know, some of the things that they gave us, they were good, right? We're here, you know, we are relating with each other. We know how to have a conversation, of course, but some of the things that we got, they may have come from a heart place, but not so much a functional place, right? Remember I said I teach on prevention and awareness and educate, right? And as a advocate, that's one side, but as the organization Songbird, our hope is to help you function normally, because some of this stuff that we've learned in relationships, there are a lot of cycles, generational things that we've picked up that have not helped us. And so I'm going to ask this question. When you think about In My Destiny, from observation, I heard you say from your mom, you know, a lot of reading that you've done, right? Definitely, we're going to get to the part of what influences our young people as they are having relationships. But is there anything that you can think of that you learned that you had to unlearn at this point in your life?
I could give you a list of stuff I'm still unlearning, but I'm gonna answer your question. Um, One thing that I have seen so much that I unfortunately still see with my family is like brushing things off and trying to come back together, but there's really no conversation happening about what's going on at the root. And so the cycle continues over and over again. And so that's something that I experienced, I guess, a lot when I was younger. Like things would happen, and then it's like, all right, you want something from the store? And then, like, okay, well, I guess that we're done with the conflict now. But then something will happen again, and it's like, okay, these same feelings are coming up because I'm realizing, and this probably happened around high school or maybe early college time, where I realized, okay, this has really been a cycle. Like this isn't supposed to be happening. So that's something that I've had to unlearn. And so with my closest relationships, really my husband and my mom, um, my husband probably don't like it because I like to talk a lot about stuff, but I don't want to. We know that it's not valuable. It's not going to help us to just move on if we're not really getting to the root of something. And so I definitely see how unlearning that, what I feel is toxic. I feel like there's a buzzword, but something that I do feel is toxic has definitely helped to strengthen my relationship with my husband and my mom specifically, as those are the closest people with me. You muted, Miss Stephanie. You muted, Miss Stephanie. You muted. Can she hear? Yes, ma'am, you
See,
muted.
y'all missed all of that. I just said I'm not tech savvy. So when you see my head moving, I'm not disregarding. I'm multitasking. I see some questions on Facebook and then questions here. So I don't want to miss anything. But I definitely heard what you said. And I think that will help us as we continue, because as we build and we discuss, I always want to give tools, right? Because some of us may be in relationships, and once we finish this conversation, we might realize, you know what? This ain't really healthy what I'm doing, right? It's been going on so long, and I asked the question about unlearning because some things we take on, some things are passed down, some things are inherited, and nobody ever had the conversation of why do we do this? You know, why do we do this? Like I say, if you grew up in a household that argued all the time, most likely you're going to take that somewhere into your relationships, whether it's interpersonal or intimate relationships, or whether it's friendships, right? And you're trying to figure out, they're like, why are you so mad? You argue about everything, right? Because you grew up in a household where mom might have had to have the last word, or dad wouldn't let her get a word in edgewise. It can go both ways. Since I didn't speak when I was growing up, when I get in my relationship, I'm gonna tell you everything that's on my mind, disrespectfully instead of respectfully, right? So those are some of the things that we have to definitely talk about. I want to ask this question. there are four things to a healthy relationship, or building a healthy relationship, that I talk about a lot. And there's another one that I added myself because I realized it's needed and necessary. One of them you mentioned communication. Why is communication so important when we're talking about framing or having healthy relationships? And I'll let Kevin go first, because my destiny wanted to pass it on to him last time.
Um, Communication, that's one of the things I've had to work on within myself, and even being married, is communication is key. If you don't spend time talking with another person, how can a relationship grow? How can it get better? And so, communicating about my do's, my don'ts, the things I would like to see better, the things that, even hearing the communication on things that I can do better. I think that's something that you need to have any relationship grow, and any relationship be better. It's I believe it's one of the most important things in any relationship, friendship, mom and son, mom and daughter, father and son, father and daughter, any relationship. You have to be able to communicate and take communication, and not just, how's your day going, which, that's fine, but that's just the surface level of communication. Sometimes it's really the deeper aspects of communication that we need, to grow, and need to be better. If your relationship is the same it was, when you first started, then is it really a good relationship? And so I think definitely communication is the number one thing that we all need in any relationship, uh, to make it be better.
Yes, I definitely agree. Definitely agree. My destiny, do you want to take that question? Communication, why is that important when we're talking about the framework of a healthy relationship?
Yes, ma'am. That was a great response, Kevin. I want to add that we know that our lives are not happening in silo. So like it's not just us experiencing life by ourselves. We're experiencing life with our partners, with our friends, with our family members. And so communicating and speaking things out loud, it allows us to be able to allow the person that you're in relationship with to get a better understanding of you. Because sometimes we might be taking things personally. I think about the question that Kevin just asked, that might come up, how was your day? If you just say, oh, it was good, or it was just bad, and you don't want to communicate about that, you're not giving the other person that you're in relationship with, whoever they may be, opportunity to support you. And to just, I don't know, I guess just give you that space to open up, and that could give you a better perspective of whatever that you're going through. And so I think that that's one reason why communication is very important, because it allows us to put our own thoughts out a little bit more, and then even get a better understanding of ourselves. But if we're just holding everything in, then we're doing ourselves a disservice, and also doing the relationship a disservice as well.
I really like what you said. Also, if we don't communicate, we cannot get out of our head what's inside and articulate. Articulation is part of communication, right? And if somebody is asking you, how was your day? Fine. Fine. Every time they ask you, fine. But then in a month or so, when you ask them, they just lose it. They blow up. What just happened? We have a miscommunication somewhere. In one breath, you're telling me you're fine, but your actions are saying something different. So when we're talking about building a healthy framework, communication is a must. And since we're talking about young people, y'all are both young people that are married now, right? And happily married. And my destiny just said, my husband probably feels like I talk a lot, but it's necessary to do so. Think about, I'm taking y'all back a little bit, not far, because y'all ain't that far from there. But anyway, I'm taking y'all back a little bit, right? Think about when you were dating or liking somebody in your younger years, in your teen years. And even if not you, think about your peers that were around you, right? How many of you actually did this communication part? Because we also want to teach you about how to build a healthy relationship. Communication, was your communication on a scale of 1 to 10 in those relationships or those puppy love days? Where were you on a scale of 1 to 10? 1 meaning you didn't communicate worth nothing, or 10 meaning you really communicated well. Think about that for a second. And who wants to take that question?
Mine was a 1.
Yours was a
Off the
1?
bat, 1. I
He
did
said
not
mine was a 1.
communicate.
I
I
stunned.
did not communicate at all.
Okay.
None whatsoever.
Okay. So you did not communicate at all, right? And somebody's in the chat. I see Brother Jaden said, I feel that, bro. Okay, okay. So these are the young men who are now married happily, is what I heard, happily married. But I did hear you say that you still work on your communication. So if you were a 1, you're admitting like 1 is like I didn't communicate at all. So how many people did you date in your teen years?
Man,
Now look, your wife on here, don't get in trouble.
yeah.
Man, say the number that you told her. Stay right there. Say the
Man,
number that you told her.
it was a whole bunch. Okay,
Okay.
I wasn't the best guy during those times, so
Okay.
it was a lot.
It was a lot.
Yeah,
And I asked this question, of course, this is for our young people, our
of
teens.
course.
So I want to ask this question, especially from the perspective of a male perspective. If your communication skill was on 1, meaning you really didn't communicate a lot, how, Maddie, how did you, I'm trying to be the moderator, Maddie. Okay, so how did you, make the connection? Because we said what relationship
Mm-hmm.
is connection. And so within that connection, whether it's friendship, romantic, sibling, somewhere, if we're talking about we're building a framework for healthy relationships and communication is one of those tools, how did you have so many relationships and you weren't a good communicator?
So connections depends on what type of connection it is. So you could have a lustful connection with a person
Okay.
where it is not about communication. It's more just about, oh, she looked good or he looks good, and we're connecting on that level.
Okay.
And so it was never about it was never about a connection as far as communication, which
Okay.
is to me is another form of intimacy.
Right.
It wasn't about communication. It was more about a lustful part where I didn't really care if you talked to me or not. I was trying to get one thing and the same thing on the other side. So I think I think that was the reason why for so many relationships, because a lustful connection only lasts for so long. And so, you go on to the next is you go on to the next high because this lustful connection is over. So I go to the next one. And so I think the reason why for so many was it wasn't a connection as far as communication, which communication is an intimacy that lasts. It was a lustful connection, which only lasts for so long, and then you go on to the next.
Very good answer. I definitely agree. And we had said that earlier, as far as connections, right, or relationship being something mutual, you know. And I'm gonna just share this because I like that you brought, the truth is the matter. We want y'all to know the truth. The truth about the matter, every relationship we don't have, I'm over 40 and I ain't finna tell y'all how old I am, but I'm just gonna say every relationship I had, it was mutual, but it wasn't mutual for the right reason. Let's just be honest, right? But even in the communication part, because we're talking about healthy relationships and teen dating violence. And this is important that I add that piece into that. We're going to get into that in just a few minutes. But red flags, teen dating violence, you need to communicate what you want. That's why you have to be able to articulate. If I meet you and the only reason I'm connected to you is because you got big, strong arms, I'm going to tell you that, right? I really don't want nothing else but a hug, That's it. That's as nice and mild as I'm gonna put it because this is for the teens and the youth, right? But y'all grown people understand what I'm saying, right? But if you don't even communicate or articulate that, that can be a red flag, right? And we're gonna get ready to go into red flags because I really believe that our teens are experiencing a lot of unhealthy relationships because of the signs that they do not recognize, number one. Number two, what did we say earlier? Where is the first place that you learned about a relationship? They're operating off of what they've seen in the home, what they've seen uncles do, aunts do, bigger brothers, bigger sisters, right? And everyone is not having the same experience, right? But all of us want to date. This generation, we had crushes and booze, and I remember all that. But I got children as young as 8 and 9 that I go do groups with, and they are exhibiting violent behavior. And I like little Susie, and she don't like me, so I slapped her. Like, hold on. Let's just rewind. That actually starts younger than the age of, I have a crush or that's my girlfriend. As the age where a child can understand is manners. Like that, let me just start there. So if you got a 2-year-old and 3-year-old or 4-year-old coming up, they will soon be, at this age that we're talking about, youth, teens, and young adults. Make sure they know no means no. Mommy is saying no, not laughing, I'm serious, or no hurts, no harm. It starts as little as that because you have little attitudes and personalities, that pop up all over the place. Kevin, I definitely can probably attest. I have grandkids that fall in the age range of your baby, and we see them actively going hard, and we be like, did you just go slap them because they didn't give you a piece of candy? Like what's going on, right? It starts there. Relationships start. My daughter-in-law's on here laughing. Relationships start at that point, right? Because that's where it starts. And if we let it go, let's just be honest, everybody has a different upbringing, right? If we don't check that, if we don't, say, hey, this is the right way to do this, then they'll think what they're doing is correct. And that goes with them into school, and then they meet their teachers, right? And then we start getting marks. So this starts very young, okay? I want to give y'all the other points as far as forming a healthy relationship. Communication is the first thing. Communication, boundaries, important to have boundaries because boundaries protects you. What are your boundaries? How many of you talk about boundaries when you're talking about, oh, he's cute, oh, she's cute? By the time you get into this thing, you already getting kissed or tapped, and you're not comfortable because you didn't set any boundaries. And at this point, y'all ain't known each other but 2 weeks, but they've taken it something too far that you don't like. It's important. Communication is where you set your boundaries. I used to tell my daughter, I don't care who it is. You ask them 1,000 questions a day. And if they don't like it, then they're probably not the one for you. I used to tell my sons, they're grown now, 27 and 31. Lord, they're 31 and 27. And I used to say to them, if you like the young lady, great, don't touch. If they can't deal with you not touching, then they're probably not the one for you. For the most part, they were clear. I had to pull up one time because I had somebody daddy hunting for my son, but it's not because I didn't tell them. And I was learning or teaching, in my mind, teaching them to set boundaries, right? Because you don't want to cross a boundary, meaning you set them and they need to set them. You need to know what they will do or not do, right? Because if you don't know and you cross a boundary, that can cause you problems down the road. I'm coming from the experience of being a teenage mother. It's probably a whole bunch of boundaries I should have set. Let's just be honest. So communication, boundaries, equality, that's that mutual respect. In a healthy relationship, we have mutual respect for one another. Okay, there's compromise in that. That's the one that I added in there. That's not the one they tell you about, but that's the one that I added. Compromise is necessary and needed in a relationship because we're getting to know one another. We can't go out, to eat pizza every night because that's what you like. My Destiny, you and Kevin are married, so I can imagine the things that you have to compromise on. But that's what you do when you are in a relationship, so equality, communication, boundaries, compromise is one that I added, in self-esteem. It goes back to, do you like you? Do you love you? Because if you don't like you or love you, you're going to have a hard time contending with somebody else because you're not going to know how to love on them or like them, or either they're going to take advantage of you really well. And that's what we're talking about, young people. I don't think they recognize these things based on the world they live in, and the things they're plugged into. And again, everybody doesn't have that firm foundation. Some of the examples that they've gotten have not been great examples. Let's just be honest. So as we go to the next set of questions, let me check the chat to make sure I'm not missing any questions on Facebook or in the Zoom room. My brother Derek said, way back up here, I missed it. He said, this is not the sweep under the rug generation. Well, I'm glad he said that, because if y'all young people are not the sweep under the rug generation, then I expect for y'all to have healthy relationships, not to take anything from anybody, to love yourself so you know how you want to be treated and be able to articulate how you want to be treated. So that was his comment. I definitely see that. And on some things, this generation does not let, get under their feet. And other things, when it comes to relationships, just my experience, it's an interesting dynamic when it comes to relationships, especially intimate relationships or romantic relationships. So let's go to the next section. Let's talk a little bit about red flags. So when I say red flags, what do y'all what do y'all get? When I say red flags, what comes to your mind?
Something that comes to mind when you say red flags, that's something that makes you pray that prayer, Lord, if they not the one, Lord, go ahead and, time to get out of here. That's what I think about. I think about things that make you uncomfortable. But sometimes in relationships there you will be uncomfortable, but then this goes back to the communication piece. And so if something does make you uncomfortable and you say, "Hey, I don't like that you said this," or "I don't like that you did this," I think it's a green flag when your partner can take heed and take what you're saying without getting upset at you for trying to set a boundary. That's another word that you just said. But if they are not willing to take the feedback that you're giving them and they keep doing what they want to do because they're not caring enough about you, that's definitely a red flag for sure.
Most definitely. Kevin, when I say red flag, what do you hear when I say red flag?
Red flag is like a red light. Stop.
Okay.
It means stop. You see a red flag, that's something that if it doesn't directly cross your boundaries, that's something that we can communicate about and we can work on. But if it directly crosses your boundaries, that's something where you gotta get up out of there quick,
Okay.
you know, uh, quickly get out of there, stop going the wrong way, turn around. That's it. So that's what red flag means to me.
Very good. I like to say that red flags are alerts, definitely. We have Kietis in the chat that's saying pay attention to them yellow flags also, because that means we need to slow down and reevaluate some things, right? And I heard my destiny say green flags, right? When you set a boundary, and because they care about you and respect you, and there's mutuality and self-esteem is there, right? That's a green flag when they can honor that. And so I tell young people, when I talk about red flags for this generation, I just say run. I don't got nothing else. Run. Like run away quickly. I got a Jalea coming into the waiting room. Do y'all know Jalea? And I'm asking this, y'all. I know this sounds crazy, but we want to make sure to keep the Zoom room safe. I'm going to admit Jalea,
Is it Jaleah?
Jaliyaah.
I'm not sure.
Olador. I'm gonna admit Jalila. I can't say the baby name. I'm gonna admit Jalila.
It's one of the basketball girls.
All right, come on. Thank you, coach. Come on, because I don't want no problems on this Zoom. We're trying to keep the young people safe, and we don't want no crazy people coming on here because we have a good conversation going. So when we think about red flags, yes, they're alert, they're to stay alert. But I do agree with Kietis, there are yellow flags way before you get to the red flags, right? And this is where I think this is the issue. Like, why don't young people recognize that they're in an unhealthy relationship? That's a good question. I want to ask, I have some young people in the room if you want to chime in the chat, but I'm going to ask that, why don't young people recognize the stages or that they're in an unhealthy relationship? Why do you think they don't recognize that? We're talking about red flags.
Kevin, you want to hit this one first?
I I think because they're normalized to it. They're normalized to the red flags. They, like social media, family, school, friends, they're normalized to it. So when someone tells you that this is okay and they've been telling you that this is okay for so long, whether they've said it verbally, this is okay, or you see it and there are no repercussions for the actions and this is okay, then it makes it look like this is a normal thing. So when you see a red flag, even if you kind of look at it like, oh, I'm not sure about that, you'll look back on your life or you'll look back to the things that you've seen and you'll say, well, mom said it was okay, or mom made it seem like dad said it was okay, or my friend or whoever said that this was okay, you will follow that same cycle. You will follow that same cycle over and over again. So I feel like some of us don't recognize it because we're normalized to it.
Okay. I agree with that. Normalization. Especially when we think about things like what our teens are into, social media. There's movies that definitely romanticize red flags and things like that. I don't even know if they when I talk to them um and I tell them to define a red flag, um, I don't think some of them say some of them, but I don't think they take it as such. One, because at a young age, a lot of times everybody's your friend. Let me just get out of romantic relationships and let's just talk about just basic friendships. Everybody's your friend, and so they've been my friend. We've been friends since the 5th grade and the 6th grade. And every time I got to pick up my child, y'all in the office. And why are you in the office? Because me and Lily got caught in the cafeteria doing XYZ. Well, last week you and Lily was in the gym doing XYZ. At some point, you have to evaluate your relationships. There should be a check and balance system. And I want to start with that because we know we can name some red flags, which I'll have y'all throw in the chat in a minute, because we want to be interactive. But the basics of knowing what a red flag is to check and balance. And what do I mean by that? Kevin, I think, said it earlier. If you are the same person that you were in your relationship at 16 and let's say you're 21, I'm concerned. Because again, when we're talking about healthy relationships, those boundaries or that framework is boundaries, communication, self-esteem, equality, and compromise. First of all, for myself personally, I should have some growth. And what does that mean? There's always got to be something that connects us. That's where the relationship is formed. There's some type of connection, right? So if you're 6th grade, 8th grader, y'all been kicking it, y'all homies or whatever. And when you get to the 9th grade, it can be possible you need to do a check and balance because why? You may not be growing in the same way. You may be growing apart, and that's something we have to learn again. We start with us about ourselves. I don't think young people, I know grown people have a problem doing it. So if we have a problem doing it as grown people, I know young people have a problem of letting go. It's hard sometimes for us to let go. And somebody in the chat said it's convenient. I would like to expound on that because convenience is a red flag that nobody talks about. And that's going to take us into dating violence. Convenience as a red flag. What does that look like?
I think about this kind of goes together because I was thinking about this word before you even shifted to the convenience. I thought about, I guess, a fear of being alone. And so I've had this experience not with like abusive relation, well, not physically, but maybe like mentally, emotionally, where it's been very difficult for me to take a step because it's like, okay, well, what comes after this? Once I set this boundary, which is something that we're talking about, is somebody going to be mad at me? What is this going to look like? And so the convenience, one form of convenience could be that you still get to see this person every so often and y'all get to have a good time. But then there's not really much consideration or yeah, I'm gonna just leave it at there's not really much consideration for how something is continuing to tear you down. And that's because you don't want to be lonely. You don't want to lack companionship, even though there's a whole bunch of other stuff that comes with trying to hold on to whatever that relationship is or is not anymore.
I agree with that. Kevin, you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, convenience. It's a quick way to get what you want, depending on what it is that you want. Like a convenience store, you go to a convenience store and you're eating the food from the convenience store, you're eventually gonna get sick. Versus going to a grocery store, getting the food that you need, cooking it up, doing all that. And so it's a quicker way to get what you want, but it doesn't benefit you in the end. So I feel like that's why we sometimes skip over the red flags, is because it's a convenient way to get exactly what I want. But in the end, it's really not going to be good for me. But sometimes we don't see that. We refuse to see the end, no matter how many times we've been through the cycle. We refuse to see the end, and we kind of deceive ourselves. It's going to be different this time. It's going to be different this time. It's going to be different this time. So you end up going through that same cycle to get exactly what you want. You know, as a young man growing up, the one thing, you know, wanted for all adults out there, I know exactly what I'm talking about. But, you know, like Miss Steph said, is you want that hug. Okay. You will skip over all the red flags to get that hug. And then once you get that hug, you've been wrapped in so many red flags, you won't see the next red flag coming. You won't see the next person who has that same red flag, because you got what you wanted. And so it's convenience because it's what I want. So if I want this, I want to get it as quickly as I can, instead of going through the the healthy stages. You will just, I want it now, I want it here. And so you'll skip over all the things that's actually going to break you in the end.
Yeah. Convenience. It kind of it's like settling, you know. I agree with you what you're saying, because I want this right now, you know, and I'm getting what I want right in this moment. But in the long run, what is it going to cost me? You know, if I eat, you know, it's just like getting sick, you know, or like the signs versus the symptoms. You know, when we look at stuff and we're thinking about, I guess like red flags maybe being the precursor to something in relationship, a violent relationship, right? That's what red flags are usually. They're a precursor. And just like when we get sick, there are certain signs that are precursors. If you don't stop doing this, you got the sign of it now. You can correct it, right? But if you don't stop and you ignore it, then you'll have a full-blown symptom, which can turn into a full-blown disease, right? And you can lose your life. Either way it goes, you can lose your life, right? Or you can lose your mind, right? Mentally. And so when you think about a red flag, especially from the perspective of convenience, it's settling. And usually we don't think about that, but when people are settling, that means usually they're emotionally disconnected. Think about that for a second. Because what did we say that part of those pillars were, right? Communication, self-esteem is one, right? Equality, the boundaries, right? Compromise, those things that we're talking about that are tools or what we should have to have a healthy relationship. Meaning if I have emotionally disconnected because I took something from convenience and I've been in this too long, I'm just going through a cycle. It's just a repetitive thing, you know, and I'm emotionally disconnected. That's not helpful for me. That's not building on my self-esteem. That's not building on my person, right? That's not me caring for myself nor loving myself. And so definitely that's a red flag. Let's talk about this from this perspective, because I believe that is why our young people may not recognize, like you said, they are in maybe unhealthy friendships or unhealthy relationships, right? And we're not just talking about romantic. This could be, you know, again, we're not dogging anybody, but if something we say today hits a nerve, We never ever want to start a conversation and something begins to stir or you're triggered without help. That's why we say you can always come back and contact us, right? So we can get you a resource, or you may realize, you know what, dang, it's me and my mama. We the ones that's toxic, and it's okay. There's no shame, right? But there's tools, because some of the things that we've been doing, especially if we're disconnected, we just been going through the motions, right? But all of you, I'm gonna say it like this, all of you, all of us deserve to have healthy relationships. You deserve that. When we're talking about some of the extreme unhealthy relationships that I see, you are not a punching bag. You're not there for someone to verbally or mentally assault or abuse you. I have seen people that are in a state and know they've not been physically touched, but they are unaware that they are an unhealthy or abusive relationship. We're going to talk about the spectrum in a minute. One thing I also want to say when it talks about red flags, when you think about people that stay for convenience or settle, or I think in the chat someone said for boredom, sometimes we get bored and we start playing this game. And before we know it, we've played the game too long. We've outsmarted ourselves. We're actually losing, and we're stuck somewhere. We become stagnant with a person, not because they're doing anything crazy. It's just the relationship ain't working. Somebody needs to go, right? And we continue to hold on. When I think about red flags, if I ask you about the word trauma bond, think about that for just a second. And I don't know if you know what that is or not. We definitely can discuss it, because I think another red flag that many of us have are trauma bonds. And we don't realize it. And some of those trauma bonds necessarily don't come within the relationship. It's because of what we've experienced prior, maybe what we grew up with, what we saw, those first people that we related to, our family members, so on and so forth. And how did I say, with what we learned, how does that relate to where we are now in relations? Or in relationships. So when you think about the word trauma bond in reference to red flags, what does that mean to you? What does that bring up or resonate for you guys?
So when I think about trauma bonding, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Miss Stephanie, that is when, I think it's kind of self-explanatory, but when you basically founded a relationship on similar traumas, is that what that is? Okay. And so when I think of that and how it relates to red flags, if somebody has grown up in a space where there's a lack of boundaries, and if they say something or try to express themselves and how something made them feel, they get maybe shunned, they get turned into a black sheep. Those most likely will probably start to suppress those feelings, and because we kind of talked about this earlier, things will just become okay, and that's just the way that it is. And so maybe if somebody has a similar trauma to you, y'all are bonded together and in a relationship with each other, probably treating each other bad because that's all that you know. And then there's probably no communication. There's probably no room for growth there. And so essentially, the people in that relationship or that bond are just hurting each other more and more because there's probably no health work being done to try to understand themselves better, because they're probably caught in that loop of the trauma that they've been in, and then just putting it on one person, putting it on each other, and just digging each other deeper into whatever hole that they're in, unfortunately.
In the chat, we have a comment: trauma with no healing just causes more trauma. Indeed. Kevin, did you want to add on to that?
It trauma bonding to me is we've both been through something in our past that has hurt us. And so we refuse to let each other go because we have formed a connection through the things that we've been through, whether it was together or whether it was, without each other. Exactly. It's safe and it's comfortable. I know no one else is, even if you're the one hurting me, I'd rather get hurt by you than hurt by someone else. Because of the things that I've been through, we stay in relationships through trauma bonding, and that's another connection, you know, like that's another connection. And so whether it be friendship, whether it be any type of relationship, some of us do form that through trauma bonding. You know, I've had friends that I've had to let go of because we were only friends because of the things that we have done when we were out in, you know, when we were out in the streets. We were only cool because you're my brother, because you have my back. But we have nothing else in common outside of that. We have nothing else that we can talk about outside of that. Where I want to go in my life now, you're not trying to go there. So it would be a disservice to myself and anyone else who's connected to me that's trying to go to that place that I'm achieving and thriving for. It would be a disservice to us to bring someone along who doesn't, who's not, has nothing in common with us other than we did some things back, back in my life, you know. And so uh, it's just a connection with somebody that you have in your past, or even now, that's not necessarily a good connection.
Yes, it is. And I want to explain it for y'all that may be taking notes because we want to help, you know, because sometimes we don't recognize that. Um, so trauma bonding. Usually, let me tell you what a trauma bond looks like. And these are also red flags. We're still in the realm of red flags. We said convenience is definitely can be a red flag. Clinginess, being clingy or overly clingy, like that's that person that doesn't know how to be in an individual or interdependent of you, right? So every time I get up, you on the phone. When I go to lunch, I'm on the phone. Or for the young person, and I've seen this at my high school, I shared this before, which is crazy to me. I share this story every time because it still hurts my head. I had an 18-year-old dating the 16-year-old. And the 16-year-old was the abuser. And I just shook my head like, you got to be kidding me. To the point where every time we came out of group, he's at the door. When she goes to the locker, he's at the locker. And I'm like, you don't recognize that. Oh, he just really loves me. No, that's not love, baby. You know, to the point where it ends up in educational sabotage. How is the 16-year-old telling you to quit your job? Now you're not working. You're supposed to graduate. And by the time I get to the end of the school year, you have decided you no longer need to be in my class or my group, and you don't graduate. Baby had scholarships, full ride. And I'm in my mind, I'm stuck on 16 and 18. And I'm like, who do I need to file a report with? Right. But because she was older than him, there was nothing that I can do. And so from the perspective of trauma bond, she was stuck, bonded to him, and the clinginess. So I want to, this is subtle, but most of the time, checking the phone, monitor, yes, indeed, checking phone, monitor, love bombing. Usually when you have somebody that's traumatic, be careful of this because they're going to start out, I'm talking about love bombing you. And for young people, especially us that, you know, some of us, I'm gonna be honest, some of us good church kids, we know we ain't really have no relationships till we got old enough to, you know, drive. So, you know, we was on lock and key. And so that first person that came with a key, we fell for it, link, sink, line, you know, hook, line, and sinker. I'm just gonna be honest because I do have some babies on here that are from church, you know, and nobody discussed what that looks like. And so we're love bombed because we ain't never been in a relationship. Ain't nobody ever called the house because we couldn't talk on the phone after 8 o'clock, you know. So we got to a certain grade and, you know, we got a little freedom and it happens, you know, it's nothing to be ashamed of, but they laugh. But it happens, right? I mean, I wish the church would talk about it. I'll talk about it. You know, I was one of them church kids. Let me just be honest, you know, but that I love you, you know, so much. You make me, you know, feel like you giving me all the attention and warmth that I need, but really you're clingy, you're possessive, you're controlling. And also when you're talking about trauma bonds, a lot of time those people are devaluating you, that other person, they're gaslighting you. Again, emotional deprivation, because once they get you to a place where you're caught up and you're stuck, you know, the manipulation begins and you see it. Because at that point, you ain't all the way in. You see signs. You ain't in the symptom stage yet. You're just in signs. but they done over, every time they do something crazy, they bring you a present or they take you out to eat, or like my Destiny said, we don't even have a conversation about it. You want to go get a burger? They talk to whatever's lacking in you and you just, okay, all right. Hey, and before you know it, you are in a situation that you don't need to be in. Most of the time, a person that's they blame you for everything. If you leave me, I'ma kill myself. The reason why I'm hollering at you, is because I just love you so much. Now that's an oxymoron. Who does that? But the person that's missed those signs will take that in and feel like, oh my God, if I leave them, what's gonna happen to them? Who's gonna take care of them? I wasn't like that before I started dating Mark. I don't know who Mark is. He's demonic. But anyway, me and Mark is in a relationship, and then let's take it further because there's other signs that I want the young people to really hear. This is what I was telling my boys. Usually when somebody is trauma bonded or has that type of trauma and tries to connect with you, they are highly physical or sexual. They can't keep their hands to themselves. They're always trying to correct. They always trying to do something like they're trying to reel you in, right? And if you are thirsty, as the young people say, y'all still say that, right? If you thirsty, you'll let them get you. You be just thirsty. You out here just dehydrated. Get you some water, get you some milk, right? Tell yourself that I love me, right? And I'm worth more than that. That's the problem, right? That's a sign that can definitely turn into a symptom or illness or sickness. And then your relationship goes to extreme highs and extreme lows. There's a diagnosis in mental health called bipolar. This is what trauma bonding looks like. One day your relationship is on a high, and the next day you don't even know what's going on. They wake up and all the world is about to end. What just happened? That's a sign. If you have somebody around you that you're talking to, that's like that, I'm letting you know what this looks like, right? It looks bipolar. 1 minute, and then the next minute you got to pull them. They about to jump off the bridge. Seriously, like mentally all the way out. That's a trauma issue. They need to get some help, right? And then the other thing is you feel powerless. In a way, when you get involved in something like that, that's because it is a red flag. There's signs, there are signs and there's warnings, but sometimes you feel like you don't have the power to quit. You feel powerless to walk away. Sometimes it's almost like a drug. You're trying to figure out why. You're smart enough to know this does not feel comfortable. This is not good, but why do I stay? Right? That means this right here is starting to break down. Okay. So I wanted to make sure that I dealt with that today. A lot of our young people in my Destiny, she deals with high schoolers. I do as well. Even as young, I said as young as 8 and 9. Kevin deals with middle schoolers, and that's the age right there that I think, Lord have mercy, at middle school age. One day they good, and the next day you just don't know what happened, right? So those that are educators and those that work with young people, those are things that we pay attention to, right? Because the hope is, as we are serving kids, serving youths, young adults, some of this stuff we'll see, right? And some of it may be that they don't recognize it. So I always tell my people, if you see something, say something, right? It's worth investigating. It's even with the kid that one day he's been happy the whole year, and then he comes to school one day and his whole countenance has changed. That requires a question that needs to be asked. We need to investigate something, okay? And I'm going into dating violence because this again is Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month, because it's those type of relationships, when those red flags are ignored, that we go from the spectrum of healthy to unhealthy, even into abusive. Okay. I'm not going to share my screen for lack of time. We have about 20 more minutes, and I want to make sure that we get through this part, but I do want to talk about the spectrum of the relationships. So I'm gonna ask our panelists, let's just talk about relationship violence a little bit, okay? More on interpersonal power and control for teens. And we know what dating is, right? Everybody, let me not assume. Let me ask, what is dating? Let's just throw that out there. Let me go ahead and let's define it, because we need some definitions. Because Kevin is the one that said, that connection might not be right. So let me make sure we got that defined. What is dating? Somebody define dating for me.
All right. I might have the wrong definition of dating, honestly, because me and my husband were talking for like 2 weeks because we were long distance for a couple years. We were talking for 2 weeks, and then he was like, "Hey, you want to be my girlfriend?" And I was like, "Nah, you gotta wait a little bit longer." And then the next day he asked again, and then we were together. So I don't think we didn't really date. I feel like we just talked a little bit, and then we were in a relationship. But I definitely think that it would be good to define dating, because I think that in this day and age, there's a skewed definition of what that is. It might be we're going on dates, or it might be we're in a relationship and that's what dating is. So I think a definition would be helpful.
I do too. I really do agree with that. Yes, because my definition of dating and relationship is totally two different things. Kevin, what about you? What is dating?
So I think dating is where two people are coming together, getting to know each other
Yes.
in a suitable way to see if that person is suitable for marriage. Dating a person, seeing if that person is suitable for marriage. Me, I might be a little old school, okay, so y'all forgive me, but I feel like if you ain't ready for marriage, you're not ready to date. If you're not ready to get married, you're not ready to date, and at this point, you just friends.
Okay.
If you aren't ready for marriage and you're dating, you will know you're only doing it for one reason. At this point, you're only doing it for one reason, because you could just be friends. We friends, we talk, we hang out, we laugh, we joke, we encourage each other, we do all that. There's only one reason why outside of that you do that. And for me, it'd be, okay, I'm doing this because I'm trying to see if you're a suitable person that I'm I'm a married. You know what I mean? And so I think it's where two people are getting to know each other to see whether or not you suitable for me to be, outside of and dating to me outside of physical touch, is, that, all that extraness. But you ain't talking to nobody else. I ain't talking to nobody else. It's just you and I. We just talking. We dating each other. We got boundaries set, but I'm trying to see whether or not you are a person that is going to be actually suitable for me for, for being married.
Okay. That was good. And let me say this, because I am old school, but I will say this because we talked about the framework of a healthy relationship. So I believe dating and being in a relationship is a little different. Let me say this, because there has to be a getting to know that person stage where we're talking about or we're communicating, right? We're building those boundaries. We're getting to know one another, right? We're seeing like, what do we like? Do we like the same things, right? And that might be one date, 2 date. We go eat pizza. We sit down and we talk about what's your favorite color, right? The next date, do you want kids? That's what you're building when you start to build those frameworks, right? And then, your self-esteem, we're building trust, those type of things. That's the part that when we're talking about healthy, we don't really do that, right? Because a lot of us rush into, because we went out, we're in a relationship. Nobody had a conversation of whether we're exclusive and it's just you and I. Are we dating exclusively? Are we dating several people? Because we're trying to see what we like. And that's okay for some people, right? Some people may date multiple people. When you have over here, somebody get feeling some kind of way, but that's why you have to have boundaries and communication. I'm single until I'm not, right? You could take me to eat pizza because I like pizza, and you can take me to eat chicken because I like chicken, and then maybe I'll make a decision, right? And so I feel like that's part of that communication piece, because you're going to set those boundaries within those dates, or within those datings or connections, right? Building that relationship, building that trust, building that camaraderie. You make me laugh. I think I might like to see you every week, or maybe not, that kind of thing. But the whole point is for you to set that boundary so you and the other person are aware and there's no miscommunication. I have had people get hurt for less, if that makes sense. And that's what we're talking about today. Now, when you're talking about going further into a committed relationship, right? That would be different, meaning we have gotten past, we've set our boundaries, we're pretty healthy, you know, we're spending regular time with one another, right? And at this point, this is potential. You're a potential partner, like Kevin's talking about for the future. You're a potential partner. And at this point, we are probably exclusive, right? It's you and me, and we're on the same page because now we're working on something. Now we're cooking with grease and we're going to take this further, right? But again, everybody's relationship is different. The main thing is, in order for you to set all this up, you have to have these conversations, right? You have to have these connections. And it's in the connections. Yeah, I need you to take me on several dates because this date might have been good. And in 2 weeks, you might come out of a bag on me. And I might say, I'm going to hold up and I'm going to set the boundary a little bit harder because I think you might be crazy and I need to really see. Right? That's what we're talking about, you know, how we determine whether you're a red flag or wait, let me be honest. Am I the red flag? Maybe it's me. May not be the other person. Sometimes you got to ask yourself that, am I the red flag? Am I a good partner? You know, you have to really look at yourself in the mirror, right? And so this is what the dating scene is, okay? So going into that perspective, when we're talking about that, I want to talk a little bit about power and control, okay? So when you're talking about there's a spectrum of healthy, unhealthy, and abusive, right? And so we're gonna just give, I'm gonna let everybody answer a little bit before we shift out. And this might be a part two because I just feel like it's a good conversation and we could probably talk about many different aspects. But if I asked you as panelists, give me some qualities of a healthy relationship. What are qualities of a healthy relationship? Give the good people that are listening, the young people that are listening, we told them what red flags are. We told them about trauma bonding and convenient settling, right? So we want to tell them, what does it actually look like to be in a healthy relationship? Give me
Okay.
10, like give me some sign, not 10, give me some signs, and we're gonna go into the unhealthy and then the abusive, which where the teen dating violence occurs.
Okay, this is number one. It's been number one since 2019. It's still number one. God, we pray. We were long distance, like I said earlier, for 2 years. So our way of convening and making sure that we convene with our different schedules was praying in the morning and at night so that we can convene. So I definitely feel that keeping God at the center is something that's a part of a healthy relationship. Another thing that we've mentioned is communication. We have to talk. Being in a long distance relationship for so long, we didn't have any choice but to talk to each other because we didn't see each other very often. Another thing is understanding that even though y'all are together in a relationship, and this could be for um romantic, but also I'm gonna say like friendships as well, and familiar relationships too, y'all have to understand that you're still individuals. And so there may be things that you enjoy doing together, you know, you want to spend time with this person, but space is still healthy, and knowing that y'all are still individuals is healthy. You don't want to be too possessive or really possessive at all. You know, you don't want to be have a jealous heart when you see this person hanging out with somebody else, because then that's when it becomes very toxic. um I definitely feel being considerate is something that's very important in a healthy relationship. What are some things that you wouldn't want done? And it has to be that same thought and consideration for the other person as well. So those are some things that come to mind for me, for sure.
Okay. And Kevin, go ahead. And when you're talking, I'm gonna put up the spectrum because I want people to see it, but go ahead and talk. I'm just gonna share my screen while you're talking. So give me some things that you would say are healthy, or what are signs of a healthy relationship young people need to know.
She said it. I mean, I
No.
think she went down the whole line. She
Okay.
said it, but just trust. I think one of the big ones is trust, and I know that's something that you work for, or you know one another, learn how to trust one another. But I believe trust is the big one, because if you can trust them, then you can trust them to be their own individual, or and trust them to communicate. And so I believe trust is the big one. Um, but you know, like she said, it's God, you know. for me, it's God's spirituality. How are y'all spiritually? And not how are y'all spiritually with one another, but how are y'all spiritually with God? Uh, is it a respect for God? Is there a love for God? Because if you can respect and love God, then I know that you will learn how to respect and love me as well. And so I believe having a spiritual respect and love for God. And then socially, how are we socially? And like my destiny said, there are some things that we may like to do together, and then there may be some things that I choose not to, I choose not to do, or I don't like to do, and you like to do. And then also the other part of that is compromise. There might be some things that I don't like to do, but you enjoy my company in doing it. Let me compromise. It ain't gonna kill me to go ahead and do this. Now, it might not be something I do all the time with you. And that's where communication comes in. I might not do this all the time with you. But if you want to have my company in this, then I don't mind, I don't mind being there. And so spirituality, socially, and emotionally. How are you guys emotionally? As far as how do you guys connect to one another? How are you guys sharing your feelings? Are your feelings being are you feel like you are getting when you talk, or you feel like the other person is actually listening? Or are they just in one ear, out the other? So being able to connect emotionally, without it having to be a physical thing, but we just connect emotionally. We're just communicating with one another, and you're hearing my heart, and I hear your heart. And this is about to be a churchy thing, but they say intimacy, into me you see. And so just being able to see into one another, and so emotionally, where that comes in as far as communication. So
I definitely agree. And if y'all ought to be able to see my screen, I wanted to put up the spectrum from healthy, kind of what my Destiny and Kevin just touched on, some of those things. What does being healthy look like? Communicating, respectful, trust, right? Honest, equal, right? Again, compromise is part of that equality. Enjoying personal time away from each other. Please make sure you are individually okay, right? And okay together, making mutual choices. And then that last one is, of course, when things are a little more serious, economic and financial partners, that's important. With the range from them, we talk about unhealthy. So I'm saying this because we want to make sure today, if you are in an unhealthy relationship, there is help. There are services. Loveisrespect.org is one of the websites that I'll put in the chat for young people. The National Domestic Violence Hotline, all of that. If you can't tell someone close to you, tell somebody that can walk you through that. But unhealthy, you may be in an unhealthy relationship if your partner is not doing those things. And y'all can see them. I don't want to have to read them all. But one thing for young people that I definitely see, the pressured into activities. If someone is trying to pressure you to do something that you don't want to do, you don't like to do, run. That is a sign that is a red flag. That's that controlling, that's that power and control. And then we go into abusive, okay? And I want to definitely talk about that. What does relationship abuse look like for teen and young adults? So here it is right here: communicating in a hurtful or threatening way, mistreating you, accusing the others of cheating when it's untrue, denying their actions are abusive. I'm talking about they just jacked you up against the wall and telling you, I didn't mean to hurt you. I love you. You're lying. Don't touch me, right? That's a lie. Controlling, there it is again. Power and control is the main thing. It's not on this particular list, but well, yes, it is. There it is. Isolating their partner away from others. Just like I talked about the young lady that every time she came out of my group, he was there. It's like she couldn't walk to her locker by herself. And most of us as young people, again, we mistake that for, oh, he really likes me or she really likes me. And that's cute. Yeah, it's cute until it's not. It's cute until it's not. Definitely physical abuse. If they start hitting you, that's it. That's a red flag. Definitely that's abusive. Sexual abuse. Let me talk about what that looks like for young people, what I'm seeing. I have young people, because we all have done things we don't have no business doing. Let me just throw that out there, But let's just say you take some pictures, and you think it's between you and your partner, and you get ready to leave or do something, and they tell you things like, if you do that, I'm gonna share this picture on our social media page. I'm gonna post it on TikTok. I'm gonna post it on Instagram. That's sexual abuse. That's digital abuse. Please be aware of that. If it's something that you would not want anybody else to see, do not even allow your partner to see that, right? Y'all are not at marriage stage, teens and young people. Y'all are enjoying life, and that's what you're supposed to be doing as best that you can, Stalking, that is something that we young people miss. That is definitely red flag. Stalking is the one that every time you come out the bathroom, they there. Stalking is the one that when you get up in the morning, they calling you like clockwork. You can't barely brush your teeth, If you catch the bus, they are there on your street stalking. We think it's cute, but it's not. It's being repeatedly monitored or watched. Sometimes harassment goes with that. Stalking also can include unwanted gifts. People start giving you gifts that you didn't ask for, and it becomes a problem. That is stalking. So those are things that you will know, when you're talking about teen dating violence awareness, that can lead into that abusive realm. Okay. I also like to talk again about the educational sabotage. I'm not sure if a lot of young people know what that is, but educational sabotage, those are the ones that will mess your homework up, have you missing classes, skipping classes, your grades are in jeopardy because they are trying to gain power and control over you. And so we're getting ready to wrap up, but I wanted to make sure that I made this clear because that's why we're here to have this discussion about healthy relationships and teen dating violence awareness. The last thing that I want to show you, and I hope it pops up here, is the power and control wheel. And this is something there's a teen power and control wheel. There's also an adult power and control wheel. But this tells you, and I'm not sure if it's very big on this screen, but there's the realms of physical violence and sexual. These are things that lead into that spectrum of abusive relationships, power and control. It's not so much that the person has to lay hands on you. They want power and control over you. And so you can see some of the things, peer pressure. We didn't talk about peer pressure being a red flag, but peer pressure definitely can be a red flag. And there it is, threatening to expose someone's weakness with rumors. And some of you guys may have experienced this in school. I don't know, my Destiny and Kevin, y'all may have experienced some of that in school where people spread false rumors and things and lies. Kids do that, emotional abuse and anger, putting a person down, making them feel bad about themselves, name calling. We already said isolation, sexual coercion, somebody coercing you into sex and you don't want it, or whatever it is, touching you and you don't want it. That's that level of they've crossed the line, they've crossed the boundary. And if somebody is doing that to you and you are not asking for it, you don't want it, that can put you into a detriment, because it can turn violent. Threats, making threats, those type of threats that I hear from young people are usually the one about suicide. If you leave me, I'm gonna kill myself, crazy stuff. And I know my smart mouth as a kid. I know I'm not saying I'm not above being abused, but some stuff I would have been like, oh, let me help you, and I'm not telling y'all to say that. It's not what I'm saying, but I'm just saying, don't let anybody do you like that. Don't let them gaslight you. Don't let them get you like that. Okay, that's power and control. Tell somebody, because my thing is, if you're trying to kill yourself, I'm calling 911. Call the police. Play with them. Don't play with me. Okay, take that seriously. That is not on you, but get them some help. But don't allow it to make you be a hostage in a situation that you don't want. Using social status. there you are treating her like this and that, or him like this and that. And intimidation, making someone afraid by using gestures. I don't want to walk down the hallway because every time I walk down the hallway, he's standing there, she's standing there, and I feel like she's going to do something to me. Or if nobody else is in the hallway, I feel like they might get me or pull me somewhere. So all of that, if you're experiencing any of that, you may be on the spectrum of abuse versus healthy and unhealthy. We don't want you to have unhealthy, but we definitely don't want you to be in abusive situations. Okay. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. We've said a lot today in a short amount of time, and we're about a minute over. And so I thank my panelists, my Destiny and Kevin. Thank you so much for joining us. This is a conversation that we need to have over and over again, from the youngest to the oldest, right? And I say that because, again, our relationships and what we got and how we relate to others started somewhere. Some of us, we've healed and we got it together, and other of us, we still need guidance. We still need to know what that is. Before I close out, again, we don't want to close out without doing a wellness check, is what I should say. And so I'm gonna ask you right now, do you are you yourself, or do you know someone who is in an unhealthy relationship? And if you do, you can put it in the chat, if we need to get them some help. And that's where I'm at today. This is the whole purpose of this panel. You have myself, you have Kevin, you have my Destiny. There are other educators and coaches and parents on the line watching Facebook Live. But if you are in an unhealthy relationship, if you realize that today from the conversation that we had, we're going to tell you to get some help. Say something. If you have a friend or somebody that now they are in an abusive relationship, I'm going to tell you the same thing I tell everyone else. If you see something, say something. I'm going to put loveisrespect.org in the chat. Definitely a website for young people. They have safety planning. They give you more information. There is a hotline for you to call for help. But I'm going to tell you now, if you have somebody that's around you, that's close to you, that supports you, and they're a safe person, I'm going to tell you to go to them so you can get the help that you need. With that, we're going to take like about a minute or two. If anybody that is in the Zoom room has any comments or questions before we close out the panel discussion on today.
Miss Stephanie, can I say a comment?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, something that I also wanted to add, teens, young adults, all alike, I think that in this day and age, we definitely need to be very careful of the media that we're consuming. When it comes to movies, what we're reading, but also just scrolling on social media like TikTok and Instagram, because there's a certain, I feel, lifestyle that I'm not gonna say we, because we might not apply, but there's a certain lifestyle I feel that's being put out there. Well, you should have to live a certain way, when it comes to like material things, or going out and going here, going there. And that is something I feel is really dangerous, because it could leave people susceptible to like accept things that we don't have to, which could lead to some forms of abuse in many different ways. And so I feel like our adults will do okay, but our teenagers, we just need to just be very, very, very careful. Comparison is definitely the thief of joy. And so when we feel like we have to live a certain lifestyle, that could lead to some dangerous things. So please just be very, very careful with that.
Yes, I agree. Definitely. And grown people deal with it too, but definitely I agree with you saying. Some things the thing I would encourage you to is love yourself. Look at yourself in the mirror. Your flaws, your good, your bad, your ugly, all of that. You are created beautifully and wonderfully made, because you have a creator, God, that created you. And he didn't make any mistake about you. He didn't create you to be mistreated. He created you to be loved. And so first and foremost, start with yourself. You got to be able to tell people how to treat you, right? That's where you start, before you get into any relationship. Make sure, we're going to all grow, and stuff we'll heal from, and some stuff we'll still be healing from, but we have to have enough wisdom to know, am I even ready to be in something like this? Let me get myself together first. That's the first thing I would tell you, young people. Take care of your stuff. Have fun. Graduate. It's okay to go out and kick it and have friends, but stay safe and have fun. But don't get locked down to something that you're not ready for. Enjoy your life, because if you're not ready, I do agree with Kevin said, if you're not ready to commit, we just chilling, and some people, they got different categories of chilling. If you chilling in any other way, stay safe. Make it plain, communicate, right? That way there's no problems later. You keep yourself safe and understood. Okay, it's too much going on in the world. That's the first thing and foremost. Too much going on, but you have to love you. You are one of the most important relationships you ever will have is with yourself. So I'm going to encourage you first and foremost to love you. Don't expect that from anybody else at this moment. God, yes, your parents, yeah, I got that. But I'm talking about enjoy you, love on you, respect yourself. That's going to be a world of difference of people being attracted to you and people coming around you. All right, Kevin, you have any last statements, any last comments before we log off today?
Just piggyback on what you said. Love yourself. If you don't love you, nobody else will except for God Himself. If you can't love yourself, nobody else will love you, because you'll fall for anything. If you don't love yourself, you'll fall for anything. You'll end up in all types of places. So love you, love yourself, understand God loves you, and just enjoy life, like it was said in the comments. Enjoy the life that you have, the beautiful life that you have. And if you are in any domestic or unhealthy relationships, get help. Get some help. There's nothing wrong with getting help. There's nothing wrong with saying I messed up, or somebody's treating me bad and I need help. Get help. That's a part of loving yourself.
Indeed. Indeed, you heard it here first with the Songbird and me. Thank you all for tuning in. Again, we have been in the community now in March. We will celebrate 10 years of bringing awareness, prevention, outreach to our community, to individuals, to those that are at risk. And we definitely have a love for our youth and our young adults. If there's any way that we can partner with you, from a perspective of a panel, or either we can brainstorm on something else where we can bring awareness to an issue, please reach out. Go to thesongbirdanme.com. You can call us. You can email us. Again, we want you to take away the most important thing today is for you to love yourself. You deserve to be treated well, not mistreated. You deserve to be in a healthy relationship, and it starts with you. Respect yourself. Respect yourself. And then make others respect you. And again, if you know someone that is in an unhealthy relationship or even an abusive relationship, give them the resources. loveisrespect.org. I put the National Domestic Violence Hotline in the chat, or you can also reach out to the Songbird and me, and we can provide further resources for them. But until we meet again, thank you all for joining the conversation. You all have an amazing week. Continue to use your voice, continue to advocate, continue to stand in the gap. We love you. Take care, and we'll see you next time. Bye.